Welcome, everyone, to the Awareness Podcast Tools for Awakening. This is episode 3, Trust. And I am your host, Cyndi, here with Rona.
Rona Marren.
And I'm just very, very grateful. I'm feeling emotional too. Very grateful for the work that you and I are doing together. And when I say you and I, I'm talking about Cyndi and Rona, but also Cyndi, Rona, and all of you, everyone who is saying yes to this work and is listening to us and commenting and saying, yes, I'm going to give this a go. We are all contributing to this rise in consciousness. I don't know how I know that. I trust that. So thank you for being here.
Yes, Cyndi, I agree with you. I'm just having an amazing experience with this. And, we were sharing before we came onto the recording, there's just such a joy of these connecting of the dots here.
So this is our 3rd episode. We began by talking about honesty and the importance of being aware that we want our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions, our experiences, our words to all be in alignment with each other. And then we spent about 30 or 40 minutes focused on the pause. And we will see how the pause allows everything to slow down, which increases our awareness of when we're not being honest, in alignment, when we're not consistent in our thoughts, our words, our deeds. And we'll also see how important that pause is actually in all the other tools. Because if we're not slowing things down and pausing between thoughts and actions and experiences, then none of the other tools will really work in quite the way we intend.
Absolutely. Pausing is the anchor every time that leads me back.
So today, we're going to talk about trust. And right away, I have my beloved friend, Dove, in my mind. And I have I didn't pull out his big business card, but it literally says, trust solves all problems now. There's some work involved. It reminds me right away of A Course in Miracles, where it says, miracles are everyone's right. Purification is required first, right? Trust is similar. And with your permission, Rona, what I'd like to do is read just a few lines right now to get us started, from the characteristics of God's teachers in the Teacher's Manual in A Course in Miracles.
That'd be great.
The teachers of God have trust in the world because they have learned that it is not governed by the laws the world made up. It is governed by a power that is in them, but not of them. It is this power that keeps all things safe. It is through this power that the teachers of God look. On truth, let's leave it at that. Look on what's real, regardless of what's going on in the apparent world that is separate from them. So, before I continue, I'd like to put a stake in the, a foundational stake in the ground. Though this podcast isn't released until March, we're recording it on December 26th. I live on a little island just north of Buffalo. It is snowing outside, which is not unusual for Buffalo. What is unusual is that we are still on the edge of what they're calling the storm of a lifetime, right? The better part of 3 days of blizzard-like conditions. The city itself is still quite paralyzed. I have one daughter that's trapped in the city, and she was stranded for days at work, and her car is in the middle of somewhere, and there's stories. I have another daughter that attempted to get it home for the holidays, and she left Kentucky on Friday. And I am grateful to state that she is in a warm hotel room, still at least 2 hours from home, with roads between her and us closed. So she'll be in a hotel for at least one more day. So the world itself is giving me lots of opportunities to practice these teachings. Full disclosure, I am choosing to rest, and we'll talk about all these steps. And the body, mind, personality has had moments of intense fear and wanting things to be different and discomfort and, waves of panic rising and falling over the last couple of days. And I've watched all that. So just want to state very clearly that this tools for awakening and enlightenment, we're having an awakening experience, and there's always room for improvement, maybe, or the rise in consciousness. We're having the opportunity to use these tools in our day-to-day life. Yeah. So I just sort of wanted to let everybody know that I am teaching myself at the moment, and the intention is to join everyone who's listening, everyone who wants access to these tools. I am joining as a participant in the practice and in asking for greater and greater clarity and understanding, and giving my willingness to utilize these pointings in my own experience. How about you, Rona? Where are you right now?
Well, you reminded me of an opportunity that I had the other day. It was Christmas Eve here, and I'm in the Carolinas. So we didn't get the storm of the century, but we got the cold of the century. It was 10 degrees Fahrenheit here on Christmas Eve morning, and our power went out for 5 hours. And so myself, my husband, and my 2 children got all cozy in blankets on the couches in the living room as the temperature dipped in the house to 47. And we had a good time. What could I do about that? What part of, lack of acceptance was going to help at that moment? So checking my alignment, checking about being honest, pausing, getting an extra blanket and putting my boots on, and just listening to something on the phone as a family together, just like the Roaring 20s almost, gathered around the radio. And we really had a wonderful morning. And the power came back on at 3 in the afternoon. So no big deal. I really had the trust it would come back on. You know,
Yeah.
I trusted that what was happening was what was supposed to be happening, because there was that joy of connection with my family that happened. And I'm not sure that would have happened with all the rushing around one does on Christmas Eve usually. So it was quite a blessing.
Beautiful. All right. So we've let everybody know that even though it's probably spring, March, when you're listening to this, we're recording it the end of December 2022. And so let's go through trust. The first thing is an invitation for you to accept that if you were to trust with every fiber of your being that all is well, that everything is as it should be, regardless of the outer circumstances, if you were all your programming, all your characteristics of a human being, right? If you were to be in this space of allowing the trust of the benevolence of the universe, of consciousness, of isness, then nothing can disturb your peace, right? And that you can be part of what extends that peace into the world. So this is our goal with trust, right? To have not to understand that everything that's going on outwardly is a momentary experience, that there is benevolence, that there is a trust that all is well, no matter what it looks like. And so that's our we state that. Let's have trust that that's true, and that we can achieve that regardless of what our current world looks like. It's kind of important to put that stake in the sand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something you want to add to that as our starting point?
I guess what I would add is that some things that I'm beginning to understand for myself is that this ego is incapable of trust. And so there's that moment of identifying as the body mind that I can catch now, and I can make a different choice and realize that that is what is driving the thinking mind, is that ego. And that that as I go on and listen to the guidance, the trust builds, because I can clearly experience that having trust results in peace.
So there are, these are all symbols, right? But the way it's coming up for me right now as I'm listening to you, there are always two voices, right? Mm-hmm. And there is a voice that will say essentially what you are is separate from what you see, and that you have to make a name for yourself. You have to protect what's you and yours. You have to be successful as an individual in the world. That's sort of the conditioned egoed voice, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's that quiet voice of truth. And whether you call it God, Holy Spirit, inner wisdom, inner guru, it doesn't matter. There is accessible to all of us guidance that actually will work to dissolve this other voice more and more and bring us into the truth of who and what we are. And really heard that in what you just shared, But those two voices, they're pretty much always there until the one voice gets undone, which brings me to where we are in the way Rona and I are choosing to talk and teach on trust, pulled loosely from this section in the characteristics of God's teachers. The first step is the undoing. And can I just say, Rona, we've talked about this. By first step, second step, third step, I'm not saying we undo and then we go to the next. It's not the way it works. There's all of these tools. It's a spiral. If you could see me, you could see my body is spiraling, and all of these things are occurring at different times in different places, depending on how we're interacting with what appears to be outside of us in any given moment. One of those steps is the undoing. And it's an interesting space. For instance, though it's December 26th, right? Christmas in my world hasn't happened yet. My children are not together. We're still waiting for the storm to pass. And so there are thoughts that it's almost like you step into eddies or step into spaces. It's like I am going about my day, just doing what I'm doing. And it's like I step into this space of wishing things were different. Like I need to know where my children are. I want them here. The food is still unprepared, waiting for Christmas dinner, whatever. These things arise and they feel awful. And they feel like me. And because of my commitment to this practice, and yours too, Rona, and everyone who's listening, right? That's why we're here. In those moments, as intense as it may feel, this is when we get to step back into the pause, realize, no, nothing can affect the peace of God. I trust that, and allow the undoing to happen. Awareness alone is curative. We rest from our belief in the story du jour, and we allow it to be undone. So that's the undoing. And
it's for me, it's recognizing it. The undoing is that recognition that, is this thought helping? No. It's and that I have an opportunity to make a different choice. That feeling that I'm trapped by what I'm thinking about or a circumstance that's going on around me is not true. So if I can be willing to shift that and ask for that guidance. The workbook lesson 47 is God is the strength in which I trust. And so I just have to be constantly reminding myself that what's going on up here is not trustworthy here in my head, but in my heart. Whereas what I'm accessing when I do the pause is that heart space. And boy, what a safe place that feels like for me. It's warm. And like you said, in that space, all is well. Everything is exactly the way it should be.
Even this feeling of discomfort, we do have the choice to withdraw our attention from trying to fix the discomfort and literally rest from the story, rest from believing we are the discomfort. And as we rest from it, it weakens and dies. And you pointed to step 2, or the next kind of process, which in general is the sorting. So in any given moment, we find ourselves responding or reacting as if the world is real or a natural flow. And when we notice that, we can, within the pause, see what we're thinking or how we're responding, and we can allow the sorting to take place. Are we responding as if we know that all is well, or are we attempting to control or fix or judge a circumstance? So this is the sorting, and it actually, with a little practice, it's pretty easy to know. and to see whether or not what we're doing is constricting or expanding. We could see if our thoughts and our focus is on that which is real based on these teachings, the peace that is always with us, or if it's focused on conflict, attack,
Mm-hmm.
defense, wanting to make ourselves right so others can be wrong, whatever that is. And in that pausing, we can choose to withdraw our attention from that which doesn't serve and sink back into the awareness of what does.
For me, what I watch for is judgment. Comparison. Something should be different. They should be different. This should be different. And as we were studying honesty, a couple of podcasts ago, right in there, it said judgment destroys honesty and shatters trust. So to be able to recognize when that is what is going on, in that period of undoing, it talked about sometimes it's more of an external change in a situation rather than an internal one. For me, when I first started this and I noticed there was conflict, I found myself removing my actual body from the situation with the seeming other individual. And there anchoring myself in that pause and asking for peace. Whereas today, I'm having a lot more success at recognizing when it's happening internally. And I don't need to change the outer circumstance in order to have access to that anchor of peace today. It's a big change.
Yep. And I'd like to, just based on what you said, I'm going to read this line again, right? The teachers of God have trust in the world because they have learned that it is not governed by the laws the world made up. It is governed by a power that is in them, but not of them. It is the power that keeps all things safe. So we do, in any given moment, as we connect with our inner guidance, we are told what is best for us to do in that moment. And we do get to this place, not by forcing it, but by allowing the healing, by being aware, by practicing the pause, right? Of being able to be in any worldly circumstance. And it's almost like we are gifted with being able to see right through it. Yeah.
It's a big gift. It helps. It actually makes it humorous now. There's a lightness about it to be able to say, oh, look at what that beautiful mind of mine is doing now. Trying to create a problem, trying to create a conflict, trying to fix something that doesn't need to be fixed. My job is to step back.
And I'm just inspired to say, sometimes I laugh out loud at it, and sometimes it's really uncomfortable, and it really doesn't matter what the body-mind experience is to be able to do this work. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about undoing and sorting. The next thing on the list is letting go. Ultimately, it's a matter of understanding that there is nothing out there, nothing outside out there that needs to change to be who you are, to know yourself as the peace of God, as consciousness, as truth. We've never not been true. The beginning of A Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. Man, I love those lines. And this work and choosing to practice, even when it's uncomfortable, maybe especially when it's uncomfortable, allows us to step more and more into that. Key, though, is being able to notice whenever we think something out there needs to be different so that we can be okay in here.
Yeah, I find this stage is a period of where I just really recognize the truth of what I am and letting go of this worldly things. Nothing needs to change. You know, the more I understand nothing needs to change, things change.
Here's the other thing that I found so interesting, and it may be of value to you, which is why I'm inspired to say it. Also, the hair on my arms just went up, so I know that it's of value, at least to me, to say this out loud. What I've noticed over these last X number of days since this whole cyclone, Blom, blizzard experience started to unfold is that periods of discomfort in me was never about what was actually happening out there. It was only about, it only occurred when I forgot for a few minutes and started believing the thoughts in my mind. Very specifically, it was never about the experience one of my children was having in the moment. It was only about my believing the story the mind told me about the experiences my children were happening time and time again. Over these last X number of days, I'd step into pockets of that belief that they were suffering and then allowing suffering to begin to bloom in me, thinking that they were suffering, and then to connect with them and find out that they were having some sort of adventure and being still in the moment. So it was a great, great, great picture of recognizing that the internal space of thinking that there was a problem to solve had absolutely nothing to do with what was currently happening outside of me, and everything to do with believing thoughts, period. It's insane, really. But if you pay attention, if you kind of rest in the pause and say yes to this work, I'd put money on you discovering the same thing.
That's great. I mean, the whole point is not to cling to these thoughts and these stories and try to step back and become uninvolved. You know, it reminded me that each of these circumstances are opportunities for things to come up in me to be healed. So on the surface, it may be sparked from something seemingly going on externally, but I'm learning that there are things that just need to rise up to be seen and healed, and may not have anything to do with what's going on in the world. But these constrictions and places in me that are these tightness, they're coming up to be dissolved.
Yeah. And when we literally trust the world is giving us exactly what we need so that we could let go of thinking that we're small and limited and we need anything, then everything changes. Like even the discomfort can be received and embraced as the gift that it truly is, which is extraordinary. I feel blessed. I feel so happy, so blessed to be in this space right now. Yeah.
What's happening for me lately is as I trust and allow in these moments, I'm feeling the visceral, physical symptoms, which have nothing to do with the thoughts. And so it's been very interesting for me to pause and let go and be uninvolved of the circumstance, but then to just feel how this body is being affected by that. You know, oh, there's a tingle there. Oh, my stomach kind of feels yucky right now, you know. And what I'm learning are these are signs, these are signals for me to know that something is out of alignment. And I don't necessarily have to know what that is, I don't think, is what you're saying, Cyndi. It's more having the willingness to trust that these feelings and visceral sensations are coming up for an opportunity.
So the one thing I'd like to say about what you just shared is sometimes our physical symptoms are occurring because we are in that moment believing something that isn't real and we're having a response to it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those experiences are occurring because we're resting in the pause and our conditioning, the characteristics of who we are in the world that has held this space of a me believing that there's a world out there I have to control of. Sometimes those experiences of discomfort in the gut or a headache are arising as we're willing to rest in trust that all is well. And so what had been held in the body is being released.
Yes, I believe that.
Yeah. So it doesn't actually matter if you're trusting the process, right? And you're being willing to trust that all is well, no matter how it feels on the inside, no matter how it feels on the outside, then it doesn't matter why those symptoms are occurring. The response for those who are focused in this and are using this as a tool is the same: to pause and to watch and to allow the inner fear response to come and dissolve, and then to wait for the inner guidance as to whether or not there's something physically to do with a physical symptom. Because the guidance always comes.
Yes.
So it's interesting. Undoing, sorting, letting go. The next two things are settling down and unsettling. And what I really want to discuss, what I'm inspired to just remind us all, is that this is a journey and a process, and there is a loving, benevolent consciousness that is always available to us and will always direct the journey for us. Now, whether or not we surrender into it and allow that, or we fight against it, that's still in our apparent conscious control. But as we allow this undoing, this letting go, this sorting and rising in consciousness is being directed by a force that is loving, that is kind, that is peaceful, that knows what it's doing, essentially. And so something apparently big might come up, and we'll feel all this inner turmoil, and we'll do the work, and we'll pause, and we'll allow it to be let go. And then there's this sense of greater expansiveness and peace and openness. And then we step into it again. Something will happen that triggers something else, and there's a contraction, and so that's the unsettling, and the cycle just occurs, but it occurs in a different way, in a different point, and it's all good and it's all wonderful. And man, I don't know if you haven't, and if you've been on this path for a while, go ahead and look back every once in a while. And allow how you might have responded to a circumstance, 10 years ago, how different that is to where you are now.
Right. The workbook lesson I'm thinking of as you're talking, Cyndi, is 155. I will step back and let him lead the way. And there's a wonderful little quote in there. It says, his trust has made your pathway certain and your goals secure. And as I've been doing reading in the course, I've come across a few little quips. Awareness, trust in me is greater than his, but it will not always be than mine. Awareness trusts me more than I trust in awareness, but it will not always be that way. The more I've used this practice, the more I've had direct experience that when I do the work, when I do the pause, and I allow things to be let go, the peace and the security and the joy do come. So why would I not want more of that?
Fabulous. The only other thing that I feel to say, very useful for me to remind myself of this often, is that it doesn't matter how familiar the pain, the fear, the wanting things to be different so that I can be okay. That kind of energy will feel like it's me, or it may feel like it's you over and over and over again. If you take nothing else from this, if I take nothing else from this podcast, is that it's only familiar. It only seems like you because it's been believed for so long. But that doesn't make it real. The truth is that you've never left your source. And as we say yes to this work, as we say yes to trusting the process and trusting that what we are can never be harmed in truth, and we say yes in willingness to all of these tools, whether or not it's the tools that Rona and I are pointing at, or anything that any of our other beautiful podcast hosts are doing in the Awareness Podcast, or any other teacher that lights you up. The truth is that all is well, all has always been well, that we are the love that we seek. You are exactly where you are, in exactly the right place right now. Your yes will take you to the next higher place, will step you up the ladder, as it were, right here, right now, right here, right now. And that's the teaching. That's all I have to share. Rona, what else is coming through you to share?
Just one other signpost for me is fear. If I'm in fear or in a story or caught up in a problem, that really means that I'm trusting in my body, mind, self. The trust is misplaced when I have those kind of feelings these days. And so it is a good signpost for me to just step back for a moment and remember what I really am in that moment. It's an opportunity. I know we keep saying this word, but they really are. If we look at them as opportunities, they don't have the fear, for example, does not have the effect of paralyzing or, taking me down a rabbit hole. And so that's what I would point to this week, if or this month, if you're noticing that coming up. It may be a good opportunity to say, who am I trusting now?
Oh, love that question. Very, very good. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Thank you, Cyndi.
Thank you, Rona. So thank you very much for spending this time with us. This is the Tools for Awakening podcast with Cyndi and Rona, part of the Awareness Podcast. There is an ongoing invitation for you to join us with all these podcasts. There's a whole library of past recordings. We're in our second year. So thank you for being here. Know that I love us all very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Cyndi. I love us.